Today I do have a kind of a planned lesson for you. So this was, I thought this was pretty interesting. I helped someone create this condition here, and so I kind of generalized it a little bit for this workshop, and I'll try and kind of tweak the initial condition a little bit just to help you guys maybe help you understand maybe how this setup or this set of conditions might help you in something else that you're working on. And so what it is we're trying to hold on to we're trying to know what particular bar triggers an event, and then we want to be able to keep looking back at this one bar that triggered some kind of condition, an event, so that we can analyze either like the bar's price, or we can analyze an indicator value on that particular bar. So to give you an example, let's take like this this long signal here on this bar. All right, so what I have on the chart is simply when price crosses this red EMA, right, it triggers a signal here, right? So we got a long signal and then a down signal. So say like this simple condition triggers our bar, and then what happens if 4 bars go by, and we want to do some kind of comparison to either the trigger bar, to the trigger bar's price, or if we're using some kind of indicator, like this is the MACD on my chart, and so if we want to do some kind of comparison of what the MACD value is, on this particular bar, versus a few bars afterwards. So if a few bars go by, how do we know exactly how many bars back to look at the trigger bar? So in programming language, it takes some counting logic, but with BloodHound, you don't quite have the detailed capabilities, as if you're coding stuff yourself. But we did find a way so that you can, in a way, count the number of bars after your trigger bar. You can count the number of bars afterwards, so that way BloodHound knows how many bars back to look again to get some kind of data from this trigger bar after we've gone several bars forward. So that's what I'm going to show you guys today. With that, I guess I'll just get going. So I was going to take a look, see if there's any comments from anybody coming in. But yeah, looks like everybody's doing good. Everybody's nice and quiet. So thanks, Randy. Thanks for yeah. Had a good week. It was a very busy week for sure. Yeah, but no real news or anything to announce this Friday. Just kind of business as usual. So, so yeah, Tony. Yeah, Tony. I saw the subject on your email, Tony, but I didn't get a chance to look at it. It came in a little too late. So if you could send them in a little sooner, Tony, at least by, not too late in the night on Thursday nights, a little sooner. Give me a chance to take a look at them. That would help me out a lot. So, all right. Then I guess with that, I'll get going here. So I already have my initial event here. my initial event, or you could call it a condition, and I'll refer to it as the trigger bar. That's going to essentially trigger the counting forward as bars move forward in time. So, all right, first I need to give a name to this system. So I'll use the change button here, and basically the change button is the same as a save as. So you can see the title of this window is a save as. So just a little quick button over there, and and you'll notice that Jeremy is in the process of changing the extension of our BloodHound templates, so that if Windows defaults with the extensions turned off, but for those of you guys who are a little techie and you have your extensions turned on, Jeremy's in the process of changing the extension, which will help determine which of these XML files are a BloodHound file versus a NinjaTrader file. All right, so I'm kind of getting off subject here, but you'll see that all of these files here. So I'm in the NinjaTrader 7 templates, and then the BloodHound folder, and you'll see that these are all .xml files, and NinjaTrader uses the same format. So if I go into the chart folder, see, these are all .xml files, and so sometimes if you're really into copying files around and downloading all the files off of our website, it can be confusing as to which one belongs in the BloodHound folder versus which one belongs in the chart folder. But to help you guys out, what I've done is I've used a naming convention, and if the XML file belongs in the chart folder, I always put the word chart in the name. So you'll see that all of these signal files, let's see, this one I don't think is up on our website, but you'll notice that all these other file names here have the word chart in the name. So that's to help distinguish, which files belong in the chart folder versus which ones belong in the BloodHound folder. So if you download an XML file from the website and it has the word chart in the file name, you know it belongs in the chart folder. All right. So I got a little sidetracked here. So I'm just going to cancel that, go back to change. There we go. And I'm just going to find an old workshop name here, and let's see. Just change the date on this. So wow, already halfway through July. It's going quick. All right, so I got the name change there, and this crossover solver, right, so it's just looking at the closing price and seeing when it crosses the EMA 55, which is the red line on the chart here. So let me name this solver so we know what it's doing. All right, so I have the close over the EMA 55. And I'll get rid of this now. Actually, let me bring this list back up. All right, so this right here, this crossover solver, is our first condition, which creates the trigger bar, and then we're looking for a secondary condition that will happen afterwards. And so the secondary condition, I'm just going to do something simple. We're going to look for the closing price to break the high or the low of the trigger bar. So for example, like on this long signal trigger bar, we can see the highs up here, and the next bar definitely breaks the high, and so we'd want a long on the secondary bar. Let's see if I can find an example of where that doesn't happen. Let's see, on this short here, the short trigger bar, the next bar's closing price breaks the low of that bar, so that would trigger 2. Let's see. So here, on this long trigger bar, the next bar's closing price didn't break that bar's high, so that wouldn't trigger there. Neither did the second bar afterwards. But the third bar afterwards looks like the closing price broke the trigger bar's high by 1 tick. So let me kind of expand this out here. You can see this third bar after the trigger bar, the closing price broke that trigger bar by about 1 tick or so. So we would want to get a long signal on this third bar afterwards. All right, so I'm going to switch over to the logic board, and all right, let's see, what kind of name do I want to give this? Let's see, trigger bar. Let's see, trigger bar. How about trigger bar analysis, I guess, for lack of a better term. All right, so I'm going to drop our existing crossover solver on the board, and we'll connect it up. All right, there we go. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a comparison solver that's looking for the closing price to break a previous bar's high or low. So I'll create that condition. So we'll use the comparison solver to do that. I'm going to connect it up. So as I'm building the solver's conditions, I can see what it's doing in real time on the chart. So I want the closing price, and then next I want to compare it to the previous bar's high and low. So to get the high and low prices, we have a special indicator called SI Chameleon. And let me stretch this out a little bit. So what SI Chameleon was built for, as you can see all these plots available. You can see they all have price data in them. So this plot has the high, the low, the midpoint, the open, the closing price, typical, and if we go down here, the weighted and the median. So these are all the different price data that NinjaTrader calculates. That's available from NinjaTrader. And so I want to use, let's see, so I want to compare against the high of the bar for a long signal, and I want to compare against the low of the bar for a short signal. So in other words, if this closing price that I'm using in indicator A, if it breaks the high, I want to get a long signal, and if the closing price breaks the low, I want to get a short signal. Okay, and all right. Now you notice nothing going on the chart yet, and the reason why is because we're comparing the closing price of the current bar to the high and low of the current bar, right? So we're not actually comparing to one bar back yet. So to compare to one bar back, you have to change the displacement to 1, and so that'll essentially take the values, the data in indicator B, and essentially effectively what it does is it looks back one bar when you set the displacement to 1. So this displacement function is actually a NinjaTrader function. So if you want to get a definition of it, all you have to do is open up any indicator. So in this case, right, I've opened up the EMA, and you see this displacement function right here, right? All indicators have this displacement function here, or displacement parameter. So you can hit F1 on this screen and go find the definition for displacement and what this does, and that'll explain what the displacement is doing in the solver as well. But just to give you a quick answer, effectively what it's doing is on the chart here, if this is our current bar, when I set the displacement to 1, what it's doing is it's looking back one bar. So it's looking back on the previous bar's data. So it's a way of, so it's displacing the data back by one bar. Okay, so now you know, so when I set the displacement to 1, now we have a bunch of signals. So if we look at these, well, let's look at the current bar here. So the closing price is below the previous bar's low, and this bar's closing price is lower than the previous bar's low. However, this third bar back, its closing price is not below the previous bar's low, and it's not above the previous bar's high. So therefore, there's no signal here. All right, so I have my trigger bar condition, and I have one setup that allows BloodHound to look back, one bar essentially. Now we're going to have to build a bunch more of these for every bar that we want to look back. So for now, this set of logic is only going to work for looking back one bar. All right, so let's see. Yeah, let me mark this as our trigger bar. And I'm going to mark a few other trigger bars here as well. So hopefully you guys have this toolbar shortcut. It's available on, I think it originally probably showed up on Big Mike's, but I believe it's up on NinjaTrader's download section as well. So let me go into my indicator list. It's really handy when you're building systems, so you can mark up your chart you know, so right now what I'm doing is I'm marking all of the trigger bar conditions, which helps me build my system. And so the name of this toolbar here is Toolbar Shortcut, and it's version 1. I think there's only a version 1 out there right now. So, so you can get this from, I believe it's up on NinjaTrader's download section, but I got it, I found it on Big Mike's download section. All right, and since I got a little sidetracked, I see there's some comments coming in. Let me just take a second to read, see if there's any questions here. All right, so Randy's asking, why does it show a short signal at 18:15? Let's see, we're probably back here at 18:15. The reason why, Randy, is because the closing price closed above for our long, so we are above the EMA, and then probably, yeah, this is crude oil. So in the overnight session, it's really subjective to lots of gaps in price. And then the closing price opened up down here. So we got a quick cross above it and then a cross down. And one way that you can determine that is if you change this to line on close, it would show that it would show the closing price crossing that a lot better. I don't want to switch it over because I'm afraid I'm going to lose the colors on my bars if I do that. But yeah, effectively, or I can just draw a line. So we had the closing price from this bar go up to here, so it crossed the EMA, and then it went from this closing price down to this bar. So you can see the closing price crossed above, then down below. All right. Now, so far, you can probably determine that this isn't working out quite as we expected. And, you know, it's just because the logic isn't completed yet. So what I'm going to have to do is build a couple more of these comparison solvers, and then it also requires using a function node as well. So let me go in and actually let me name this first. So we're comparing, let's see, the close to the high and low with a displacement of 1. Yeah. So whenever I use the displacement feature or displacement parameter, I do like to put it in the name of the solver, just because, well, it'll become apparent in a moment here. So as I start copying these, so what I'm going to build is I have 4 of these. So I'm going to create the ability to, you know, to allow 4 bars to go by and still be able to kind of compare against the trigger bar. And so as I have 4 of these, really the only difference between them is going to be the displacement. So I'm just going to change the displacement to 2, and I change the name. Oops. All right, so let me just get these whipped out. All right, and next I'll go back to the logic board and drop these solvers on here. So let me just kind of give you an example of what would happen if, you know, if you're a new customer to BloodHound and you're playing around trying to figure this out. I imagine a lot of people would try and do something like that. And it kind of looks like it's working because you're getting signals on the chart. Right, still getting signals on the chart. It looks like it's working. However, if you look at it in detail, you know, you'll realize that, yeah, you got signals, but they're not the signals you want. So, for example, you know, back to this guy, we know that this is the bar that we actually want the signal on, even though I've got two different comparison solvers connected and I'm getting a signal, but it's still on the original trigger. You know, and we don't, the way this was set up to work is we don't ever want the signal on the trigger bar. The signal is always going to come afterwards, after price breaks the high or the low of the trigger bar. You know, so even though we're getting a signal, you know, obviously something's not working here. And so the key to getting all of this working is to use the lookback function node. And all right, I'm going to rearrange my solvers here a little bit. All right, so let's see. All right. So I'm just trying to figure out how to best explain this to you. Now, so we have essentially two different conditions, and they're going to be happening on different bars in time. All right, so our crossover solver that finds our trigger bar here, right? It only triggers, or its output only occurs at the crossover. And so then our secondary condition is always going to happen forward in time. And so the signals are never going to be on top of each other. So we have to find a way to take the signal from the crossover and keep extending it one bar forward. So that way when our secondary condition, right, so on this bar right here, when this bar happens, we also need this long signal of the trigger bar. We need it to occur on the bar where the closing price breaks the trigger bar's high or the low. So we have to find a way to increment this trigger bar signal forward each bar one at a time. And that's what this look back is going to do. So if we look at the next bar forward, so I'm going to plug that in. Right, you'll see there's no signal here, and that's because the closing price didn't break the high of our trigger bar. If I look at the next one down, which this solver is set up to look at, so we're using the closing price and comparing 2 bars back. So it's really set up to, let me put a little dot here. It was built to look, oops. There we go. All right, so it's built to look at the second bar, the second bar after our trigger bar. So it's designed to compare the closing price to 2 bars back. And you can see that the closing price of this bar, let me scale this up too. So the closing price of this bar didn't break the high or the low of our trigger bar. And so therefore there's no signal on this bar either. Now if we take a look at our third bar here, so I'm using the red diamond to mark the bar that we're looking at. So this is the third bar after our trigger bar. So that's what this solver is doing. This one here, the solver with a displacement of 3. Now we do see that the closing price, we do have a signal on this bar, and hopefully you guys aren't getting confused by all of these signal bars. So we just want to try and keep focused on, oops, let me draw a rectangle. I want to try and just keep focused on this area right here. So I think this will probably help. So if we're on our third bar after the trigger bar, we want to look at the closing price, and we can see the closing price did break above the high, and we do have a signal on this. Right? So let me kind of take a step back. So we can see if we have one bar afterwards, and the closing price didn't break the high, so there's no signal. And then if another bar comes in, this next solver down, there's no signal on this bar either. And when we compare the closing price to the high or the low, it didn't break it, so there's no signal. And then we get to the third bar, and the closing price did break it. So we have this logic working. The next trick is to get the signal from this crossover solver, which happens back here, to step forward, to step forward so that let's see here. So you see when I connect the 2 solvers up with an AND node, oops, there we go. It's not, you can see it's not functioning correctly. It's still giving us a signal on the trigger bar. So what I'm going to use is this look back function node to move the crossover signal forward each bar one at a time. So you can see already, right, the green arrow marks our trigger bar, but you can see the signal is 1 bar afterwards. So what I'm going to need is another look back node here, and I'm going to set the displacement to 2. So now you can see the signal is 2 bars after our trigger bar. So on this first look back node, right, the default setting for the look back node is a displacement of 1. So that's how this one ended up being 1 bar after. And then this one I had to change it. So it has a displacement of 2. And I will grab a third one here, connect it up, and I need to change this displacement to 3. There you go. Now you can see it's 3 bars forward. And I'm going to grab a fourth one here. And set the displacement to 4. There. All right, so now the next, so effectively what that's doing is all these lookbacks are taking the crossover solver and moving them forward 1 bar at a time. And you can see I'm pairing them with all of these different comparison solvers. So now what I can do is when I use the logic, the AND logic now it's going to work correctly. So you can see now there's no signal, and that's correct. There shouldn't be a signal because what this group is looking at, the first bar after the trigger bar. So if we look at these individually, so looking at the look back node, we see we have a signal, right? Because that's the crossover solver signal being moved forward 1 bar, and then we have our comparison solver, which is looking to see if the closing price broke the previous bar's high or low, and we can see it didn't. The closing price is right here in the middle, and so there's no signal. And so then when we AND the two together, it's functioning correctly by not giving us a signal. So now if we look at the next bar forward, so I'm going to put the red diamond on the closing price, and we can see the closing price is still in between the high and the low, so it hasn't broke it yet. So if we look at the comparison solver, right, there's no signal on this bar when we compare the close to the high or the low. And when we look at the look back node, we can see our trigger signal was extended forward to the second bar. And I need to join these two together with an AND node. And you can see there's no signal. So that's functioning correctly. And now if we get to our third bar forward, oops. So now we can see the closing price marked by the red diamond finally did break the high of our trigger bar. And so when we look at the comparison solver, we do have a signal on this bar. And of course, the look back node moved our trigger bar signal forward to the third bar here. And so when we AND those two together, we will get a signal out of it. All right, so there, so we do finally see the signal here afterwards. And let me just drop down another AND node so I can put together the fourth bar logic. And of course the fourth bar did it as well as price took off. So, all right, so the closing price of this fourth bar afterwards is definitely above the high of our trigger bar. So that logic is working correctly as well. All right, so we have 4 groups of logic here. And let me just kind of organize these a little bit better here. And of course you can see that, right now we have to look at them all individually. So what we need is a way to tie all of these together so we can look at all of these different conditions at the same time. And so to tie them all together, we're going to use the OR node. So, and just to teach you guys a good methodology in building your logic, I'm going to go and name these AND nodes so I know what they're doing. Right. So this is the first bar after. Let's see, after the trigger. And this is the second bar. After the trigger. And I'm going to clear the word trigger out of there because I don't like having long solvers. So I try and keep the names as short as possible. All right. Okay, so now when I look at this system, I've got names that kind of tell me what each one's doing. So that way, if I ever take a look at this a month later, it'll help me figure out what I was trying to do. So, all right. So now, if we look back on the chart here, and all right, so remember, these arrows were marking our trigger bars. And so on this trigger bar here, let's see, so we did get a short signal here, and it looks, looking at this logic, let me put a red diamond on the closing price. And I want to stretch this out. So I'm looking at this. So here's our trigger bar. So we had a low down here, but the close is up here, and for some reason we still got a short signal. Well, that doesn't look correct. So let's take a look at what might be going on. I'll try and debug this. So let's see, that would be the second bar after. I'll take a look at that there. No, it's not that one. And it's not that one. Oh, interesting. Okay. So it's this this solver down here that's looking at the fourth bar after. And so as I look at the comparison solver, I can see it's giving me a signal. What it's doing is it's looking at the closing price as marked by the diamond, and it's looking back 4 bars, which would be this bar, and I see the low is right here marked by my cursor, so the closing price is below it. And look, oh, so I had it marked as a trigger bar, so we had some whipsaw action in price, so we did get a short cross down, which created a trigger bar, and then price crossed back up, created a long trigger bar, and then crossed back down. So that's what happened. So this set of logic here that's looking at the fourth bar after the trigger bar, it actually is correct, because we have this short trigger bar that happened, here first, and then as we count 4 bars forward, this logic is correct. So as we look at the signal on this bar, it's actually based off of this first short trigger bar here, and then this second signal here is we're getting a short here based off of this second short trigger bar marked here by this arrow. All right, so let me connect up our crossover solver again. Yep, so you can see we got some whipsaw action in price. So this wasn't initially what I wanted, but who knows, it might end up being a good signal anyways. In hindsight, we can see, yeah, it did end up being a good signal anyways. So we'll just leave it as it is. Let's take a look at some of these others here. I need to mark a few more signal bars here. All right, so as we look at this trigger bar here, step forward, closing price didn't break the low yet, and there we go. We have the closing price broke the low of the trigger bar. All right, well, I see a bunch of questions coming in, so let's let me take a look at these. All right, so Charles, I see your question. Here, Charles. Let me kind of address some of the questions about this first, and then I'll get back to your question, Charles. Let's see. All right, so Randy, Randy's asking, why does it show a short signal? Oh, I already took care of that. And Randy's got another one. Okay, just a comment there. And so Tony's asking, can you show me how you grab and move multiple objects and line up? Okay. Yeah, so this is more of a general question about the logic board here. So you probably all know how to just grab a single node, and move it around. And you can also select multiple nodes. So if I wanted to take this group here, let's say I wanted to tighten it up a little bit, grab it, and then I could, with my mouse cursor over here, I can select these three, and you'll notice I didn't have to completely surround them like this. All I had to do was just see the box that gets created when you drag. So I'm dragging my cursor. So I'll just put my cursor up here, hold the mouse button down, and drag, and you can see all I have to do is just touch a solver, and it becomes selected. So now you can see the little squares out on the outside here, and that indicates your selection area, and it tells you what nodes have been selected. And so now I can move them around as a group. And so I can move this down here and kind of tighten it up, clean it up. And if I want to move the whole group, obviously I can just come down here, select them all, and then move them all as a group, like so, and I can line them up, and then line this up. So, so just remember, if you have a whole group selected like this, then a lot of times what happens, I find myself doing this sometimes, is I'll go in here and I want to select a node, and I can't select a node in here because I have the group selected. So every time I click on a node, if I wanted to edit, so if I wanted to edit this comparison solver, I'm clicking on it, and you can see it's not showing up on the right hand side, and that's because I'm in a selection mode right now for moving stuff around. So all you have to do is just click off to the side somewhere, and you can see the colors of all the nodes change, and then I can go in and select the solver and edit it. All right, so it looks like Randy's got a comment here. Let me go back to the chart. A deep retracement could involve quite a few solver sets. Could you use a truth table in this instance to simplify the number of solvers? I don't think so. Because let's take a look at this fourth bar after set of logic. I don't think you can, because the displacement is different on each one of these comparison solvers. Right, so I had to take each one of these comparison solvers and change the displacement. So the truth table wouldn't increment this displacement parameter. And also the same is true for this look back, right? So this look back has a displacement of 4 in it as well. And so this look back has a displacement of 3, right? So each group of logic has a different displacement value in it. So I don't know. So I don't believe the truth table would take care of that. So yeah, you just have to build as many groups as needed. But in my building of systems, I know that you don't want to keep looking for something to happen too long afterwards. So if you got, some kind of a triggering condition, it's been my discovery that the longer you wait for price to kind of give you your secondary, entry condition to enter into the market, the longer you wait afterwards, I've kind of discovered that the weaker or the less valid, your first condition becomes. Basically, you're just more and more susceptible to this price action whipsaw if you keep, the longer you wait. So I can't imagine you would want to build too many of these lookbacks, because every time you build one and you allow price to keep moving forward, then it begins to invalidate your initial trigger condition. All right, let's see. Oh, John has left, but maybe he's got a good question here. All right. So John was asking, are these recorded? And yes, these are all recorded. So I generally get them posted up on YouTube. The earliest I can get them posted up on YouTube is Saturday, just because it takes a while to process these videos on my computer. But usually I get them up by Sunday night. Usually they're up on YouTube. They're always up on YouTube first, and then I'll build the blog link on our website afterwards. So just so you guys are familiar, if we go to YouTube, and if you do a search for shark indicators, and you'll see a bunch of our videos will pop up here. And we'll just click on this one. Just click on one of them, and now you can see, oh wait, that's NinjaTrader. Oh, that's not one of ours, that's one of NinjaTrader's. Let's see. And here we go. So what I'm looking at is this name here where it says buy. Right, so these are all by NinjaTrader. So we can see one here. Our YouTube channel is created by Jeremy, so it has Jeremy's name on it. So now I can click on Jeremy Tang, and now it takes you to all of our recorded videos up on YouTube. So here you go. You can take a look at the recent upload list. Take a look at the recent upload list, right? And so you can find this workshop video in this recent upload list, by Saturday or by Sunday. All right, so let's see, Randy, looks like Randy has a comment. We're getting another signal because it's a second bar after the signal beyond our original trigger bar. Okay, yeah, so Randy was probably talking about back here. All right. And let's see, Tony is asking if the second candle has the right. I really don't want to see the third candle's signal of the same direction. All right. So what Tony is talking about is, you see how sometimes we have two, or in this case we had 3 bars with a short signal. And see, over here we had 3 bars with a short signal, and here we had 2 bars with a long signal. And so a lot of people only want to see the first signal, and they want to block the any additional signal bars that follow afterwards. So to clean this up, we can use the signal blocker. And with this type of setup, since essentially we have 4 groups of conditions, so the most we could ever have in a row is 4 signals in a row, just because we only have 4 groups that are built here. So what I can do then is I can use the signal blocker in its simplest form, and I can set the reset after to 4, because I know that I only need to block potentially, actually 3. I only need to block 3 signals, because let's just say I get a signal on the first bar after our trigger, then I only need to block the remaining 3 signals that could come through. So I could set this down to 3, and let's see what else. So as far as the reset on, let me kind of walk through these and see. So reset, yeah, so when there's no input signal, no, I think we'd want to turn this off. The input no signal, you want to turn it off, because I'm just thinking theoretically, I'm going to bypass the signal blocker. Let's take a look at, let me see if I can find what I'm actually thinking about, so I don't have to speak in theoretical terms. Oh, I think I found one. Great. All right, let me just test it out here. Okay, so here's our trigger bar. All right, so this bar broke the EMA, closed up pretty good, so that's our trigger bar. And so here we go. So we can see, let me mark, so we can see this red diamond is above our trigger bar's high. All right, so that's a valid long signal. And then look, we got 2 down bars afterwards, which don't have a signal. And then this 4th bar afterwards is another valid signal, because the closing price is above the high there. So what happened is we had 2 bars in between that had no signal. And so let me connect up the signal blocker. All right, and so normally, so this was set to true, so let me put it back on true. And so when this is on true, this input no signal, what happens is, so we get a signal on this first bar afterwards, and so what's happening, so the signal bar would start blocking signals afterwards, but what happened is when you look at the original signals, there's no signal here. There is no signal there. And so with this set to true, it says input no signal, and so there is no signal coming in to the blocker, and so that resets it. So this no signal coming in would reset the blocker node, and it would stop blocking. So that's what's happening. So now I'm connected after the signal blocker. And so these two bars that have no signal reset the blocker node. And so it's not blocking signals anymore. Here's a good way to demonstrate. So I'm going to set this blocked output. This blocked output is great for helping you to debug the signal blocker. So I'm going to set it to 0.2, and so you see here now on BloodHound's output here, right? We get these little 0.2 outputs. So this is telling us when the blocker node is actually blocking the signal. So so we can see it was blocking this first bar that had no signal, but the second bar that had no signal, you can see it stopped blocking, and therefore it allowed this fourth bar signal to go through. Now, if I turn this off, if I set this from true to false, now we can see, if we look at the output, we can see it's blocking, and it's blocking, and it's blocking, and now we no longer have a long signal on this fourth bar. So we do want this turned off, and we're not using the reset input, so just so we can turn those off. And we're not, and the one we, probably the one that option that we would want to keep on is the input opposite signal. So in other words, so we have a long signal here, and then if the short signal popped up right afterwards, we wouldn't want to block the short signal. So we could use this opposite signal, set it to true, so it would stop blocking. So we could allow this short signal to reset the blocker node when we're blocking long signals. So this is probably the optimal way to set up your signal blocker for this particular case here. So, yeah, so there you go, Tony. That's how you can clean it up. Oh. All right, so Charles, let me get back to Charles's question. So he's saying, okay, so he says, I have not updated BloodHound for a few months. Should I uninstall before running the new BloodHound install? I assume my prior work will be saved. So yes, Charles, your prior work will be saved. So let me kind of show you what will happen here. So I'm going to open up the File Explorer, and you can see I'm in my NinjaTrader 7 directory. And so if I go into Templates, and then you'll see there's a BloodHound here. So these are all of your BloodHound templates inside of this folder here. So this folder will always remain. So if you uninstall BloodHound, this folder does not get removed. It doesn't get touched. So when you uninstall BloodHound, this stays intact. So this is all your saved work is in this folder. So now, Charles, depending on how old your BloodHound version is, if it's old but if you installed it with our new executable installer, then the first thing you want to do is you want to go into the control panel, and you'll want to go to find programs. There we go, programs and features, and you'll want to look for Shark Indicators BloodHound, or the first version was just called BloodHound. So you might find this under, like in this case, shark indicators, or you might see it up here at the top just labeled as BloodHound. So you'll need to uninstall this first and then install the new update. So if you do not find a BloodHound or a shark indicators BloodHound in this, then that means you have a really, really old version. And what you'll need to do is a few extra steps. So in that case, what you would do, let's see. All right, so you'll, I'm looking in my downloads folder here. And let's see, so here we go. Yep. So I have my shark indicators installer, and I actually put these numbers in here to help me differentiate it. But when you download it from the website, it just says shark indicators installer. So so if you have an old version that doesn't have a uninstaller here, then what you'll do is you'll want to install it first. And of course you need to shut down NinjaTrader before you install it, so make sure NinjaTrader is shut down. Run the new installer. When it finishes, then you'll need to come back and you'll need to uninstall it. And what that does is we found a little quirk with Windows. So the Windows.net system creates a cache of BloodHound's properties. You know, it's kind of a programming term thing, and we found that Windows is caching that. So this is something with Windows, not NinjaTrader. So you'll install it first, and then you have to uninstall it, and then restart your computer, and that causes Windows to clear out this weird cached file that it has. And then you'll install shark indicators, or install the BloodHound again, and then you can start NinjaTrader. So it was a weird quirk when converting from the old BloodHound that you imported, you know, the manual way through NinjaTrader's control panel, to go from that install process to this new installer. You know, there was that weird little quirk in between. So Charles is saying, so install new executable, then uninstall, then reinstall. Correct, Charles. That's correct. But after you uninstall, restart Windows, restart your computer, just to make sure. It just always helps. So, and then when your computer starts up again, then install it, and you're good to go. Let's see. So, Charles, you're saying you have shark indicators 1.101. Yeah, I believe the 1.101 was the old import process using the control panel. Yeah, so if the last time you updated BloodHound was using the NinjaTrader's import process, then yeah, you need to go through the few extra steps of installing, running the executable, then uninstall it, restart Windows, and then run the executable again, and that'll get you going. So cool. All right. Well, with that, guys.